Welcome back to Face the Nation. We want to continue our conversation with Virginia Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin. Governor Youngkin, you were just in Nebraska on Saturday speaking to Republicans across the country. You have also said President Biden was legitimately elected. Former President Trump continues to falsely claim the 2020 election was stolen. Should he stop saying that?
Well, let me begin with my trip to Nebraska, which was really great fun. Governor Ricketts had really helped me in my race, and it was a great chance for me to show up and help in the next race to elect a Republican in Nebraska. And one of the things that I'm really focused on is helping Republican governors get elected. You know, I've got a big job in Virginia, and it takes the vast majority of my time. But I do think there's spots that I can be helpful, and so I plan on doing that this year. Of course, the other thing we plan on doing this year is helping congressional wins in Virginia. And I think there's a great opportunity there.
But what about former President Trump?
Well, I think this is a moment for the Republican Party to recognize exactly what I recognized last year, was this is not an or moment, but an and moment. I mean, we brought together Virginians last year, forever Trumpers, never Trumpers, independents, Democrats. We won the Latino vote, the Asian vote, the largest voter turnout for Black Virginians that anybody can remember to vote for Republican. I mean, I think this is the future of the Republican Party, which is to recognize that we have to come together and these common sense kitchen table issues that are on the forefront of everybody's mind, inflation, schools, safe communities, an economy that isn't stealing everybody's hardworking money through inflation, but gives them a job.
So
this is where the Republicans,
2020.
This is the Republicans that we can win.
So former President Trump should stop talking about it.
I think what I did last year was I focused on 2021, and we had 5,000 people come and volunteer in elections, and that gave everybody confidence in our election process. They showed up, they voted in record numbers for a governor's race, and we won.
The January 6th committee continues its work this week. Some members of the committee believe the former president has criminal wrongdoing. There have been many revelations made by this committee. What do you believe you should do in the wake of all of this new evidence? Can you continue to support someone like President Trump?
Well, let me begin with what happened on January 6th with the invasion of our Capitol was awful, and it's a blight on our democracy. I have to be honest, though. I talked to thousands of Virginians, and the topics they want to talk about is not January 6th. What they want to talk about is runaway inflation, gas prices. They want to talk about crime in their communities. They want to talk about education and the rights of parents to be engaged in their kids' schools. I just fundamentally believe that the media's attention on this, while I think it's important to the media, is really not what voters are focused on.
It's not just the media. Some Republican governors, like Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, have said President Trump shouldn't run again. Is that your view?
President Trump's going to do what President Trump wants to do. And my job is to have the best Virginia we can have and to demonstrate that a Republican agenda on low taxes and great schools and safe communities, and by the way, a thriving economy that's working with companies like Boeing and Raytheon moving to Virginia. This is the Republican agenda of the future, and this is the one that I think we're delivering in Virginia, and I think this is the one that's going to really carry a red wave across the nation this year.
So that's your agenda, that's your focus. You also have political capital. You are a rising star in the Republican Party. Every reporter wants to know how politicians use that political capital. You have a political action committee that's busy right now. Will you support and spend money through your PAC to help candidates like Doug Mastriano, the election denier who's running for governor in Pennsylvania on the Republican side?
Well, I believe what I can do with our supporters is first get congressional representatives elected in Virginia. First and foremost, I think the road to the majority in our House of Representatives comes through Virginia. And I'm going to spend real time there making sure that we win these elections. And then I believe there are governor's elections around the country where I think I can make a difference.
Is Mastriano's one of them?
Well, I have a huge job in Virginia, and so I've got to be real careful in how much I spend time out of Virginia. We're still working on my agenda, but I think there are states like Virginia where people recognize that a Democrat governor has not done a good job, and a Republican governor, like the Republican governors all over America, can do a good job. And those are the ones that I'm going to go support. We haven't figured out where I'm going yet, but at the end of the day, I'm going to help some Republican governors get elected.
When you look at a map, Nebraska right next to Iowa, the early voting state in the 2024 presidential election, are you open and your family to considering a run for president in 2024?
First, I am hugely humbled by this discussion that's going on.
Some donors have come to you.
And the reality, of course, is I think it's based on the fact that I won in a state that was blue and we turned it red. I ran on a platform that we're delivering. And I often find it shocking that people are surprised that a person runs for office and then goes to work to deliver on what they promised they were going to do. And so I think my job is to be a great governor in Virginia.
But are you open to considering, along with your family, the idea of a presidential run in 2024?
That's not a decision that we have even begun to undertake. The reality, of course, is I've been governor of Virginia for 6 months. We've got an extraordinary amount done. $4 billion tax cuts, a record budget for education, $400 million into law enforcement to raise salaries and keep our community safe. This is where I'm focused.
I didn't hear you rule it out, but I hope if you make a decision, you come back here and break the news with CBS.
Great.
Governor Youngkin, thank you so much for being here, and we'll be right back. Former President Trump's top White House lawyer, Pat Cipollone, talked with the January 6th committee for 8 hours Friday. The committee tells us this morning that they received critical testimony on nearly every major topic in its investigation, reinforcing key points regarding Donald Trump's misconduct and providing highly relevant new information that will play a central role in its upcoming hearings. We're back with Maryland Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin. He will be a lead questioner in Tuesday's January 6th committee hearing. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
Delighted to be with you, Robert.
A rare statement from the committee characterizing Cipollone's testimony from Friday. What will we hear Tuesday, and will it include some of Cipollone?
Well, we're going to continue the story of Donald Trump's attempt to overthrow the 2020 presidential election. And at the last hearings, we showed how lots of doors were closing on him, if not all the way, at least part of the way in the state legislatures. That didn't work for him. The Department of Justice mini coup didn't really work for him. The attempt to get DOJ to say that the election was corrupt had not come through. The effort to intimidate election officials like Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in Georgia had not succeeded. But now he was turning his attention to January the 6th. And we're going to get to use a lot of Mr. Cipollone's testimony to corroborate other things we've learned along the way. He was the White House counsel at the time. He was aware of every major move, I think, that Donald Trump was making to try to overthrow the 2020 election and essentially seize the presidency. And so I considered his testimony valuable.
So we'll see him perhaps on video or part of his testimony excerpted. But who will we have in the hearing room as live witnesses?
Well, one of the things that people are going to learn is the fundamental importance of a meeting that took place in the White House on December the 18th. And on that day, the group of lawyers, of outside lawyers who've been denominated Team Crazy by people in and around the White House, came in to try to urge several new courses of action, including the seizure of voting machines around the country. And so some of the people involved in that were Sidney Powell. Rudy Giuliani was around for a part of that discussion. Michael Flynn was around for that. But against this Team Crazy were an inside group of lawyers who essentially wanted the president at that point to acknowledge that he had lost the election and were far more willing to accept the reality of his defeat at that point. So there will be other witnesses coming.
Witnesses who were at the December 18th, 2020 meeting. First-hand witnesses.
No, there will be testimony about that. That there will be other kinds of evidence submitted about that. But there will be other witnesses, and I'm afraid I'm not authorized to disclose who those witnesses are at this point.
If anyone's authorized, it's you. What about Steve Bannon, the former White House chief strategist, seems to be signaling he's willing to come in. Do you buy it? Is it a genuine offer, and will you accept it?
Look, we want everybody's testimony. We've talked to more than 1,000 people. And to me, It vindicates the way our system of justice works and the way that our democracy works and legislative democracy works. Well, I understand from reports today he's had a change of heart, and after watching presumably all of these people come forward, including Cassidy Hutchinson, he's decided that he wants to come in, and if he wants to come in, I'm certain that the committee would be very interested in hearing from him.
Would it be closed door with Bannon, or do you want to, because he could go up there and pontificate if it was a public live hearing?
The way that we have treated every single witness is the same, that they come in, they talk to the committee. If they're going to take a deposition, they're sworn under oath. It's videotaped, it's recorded, and then we take it from there.
Bannon was at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. on the night of January 5th, 2021, the eve of the insurrection. What are we going to learn from your hearing on Tuesday about the Willard Hotel? Roger Stone, also present at the Willard that night. Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani. Is there a real connection between those so-called war rooms, the violence outside, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers gathering, and what was happening inside the West Wing?
Well, I think your question practically answers itself. Donald Trump was, of course, the central figure who set everything into motion. He was the person, Rob, who identified January 6th as the date for the big protest. And he announced that in his tweet in the middle of the night on December 19th, after a crazy meeting, one that has been described as the craziest meeting in the entire Trump presidency, ended December 18th, and Mark Meadows escorted Rudy Giuliani out the door. It sort of ended at that point. And then just an hour or two later, Donald Trump sent out the tweet that would be heard around the world. The first time in American history when a president of the United States called a protest against his own government, in fact, to try to stop the counting of electoral college votes in a presidential election he had lost. Absolutely unprecedented. Nothing like that had ever happened before. So people are going to hear the story of that tweet and then the explosive effect it had in Trump world, and specifically among the domestic violent extremist groups, the most dangerous political extremists in the country at that point.
What about Ginny Thomas, the spouse of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas? Her lawyer now says she doesn't want to appear. Will she ever appear before your committee?
I mean, again, that's like with Steve Bannon. I mean, the vast majority of people, young, middle-aged, old, Cassidy Hutchinson's a great example, have done their civic duty, have done their legal duty, have done their patriotic duty, and have said, I'm going to come forward and tell you everything I know and nothing but the truth.
What's your message to her if she's watching?
To whom?
Ginny Thomas.
My message to her is my message to all Americans, which is if you have relevant information, if you are a material witness in any respect to these events, come forward and tell us what you know.
Can you force her hand?
Again, I don't want to enter into questions and negotiations about specific witnesses. Right. I mean, it's kind of a violation of our responsibility to the public, but we are telling everybody in the public, come forward and tell us what you know. And if you get a subpoena, I mean, a subpoena is not an invitation to a Valentine's Day party. A subpoena is telling you, the word subpoena means under penalty of law. You get a subpoena, you come in.
When you look at your previous comments, you said these hearings would, quote, blow the roof off the House. Major hearing this week on Tuesday, led by you in part. Another major hearing on Thursday. Will your statement still stand by Friday, that these hearings will blow the roof off the House? Well,
not literally, certainly, but I think what I meant is that when you add all of this up together, it is the greatest political offense against the Union by a president of the United States in our history. Nothing comes close to it. A
criminal offense.
The attempt to overthrow the result of a presidential election through a political coup and the mobilization of an armed violent mob cannot really be compared to anything else a president has done. It makes the Watergate break-in look like the work of Cub Scouts. I just hope that we're telling everything we know in a competent and effective way to the American people, because, Madison said that in a democracy, the people have the right to the most awful truth, which is the truth about the nature of government and their rulers. And we need Americans to look very carefully at what happened.
Congressman Raskin, thank you. The next January 6th hearing will be on Tuesday, July 12th, and you can watch it right here on CBS on our broadcast and our streaming network. We'll be back in a moment. During the final weeks of the Trump presidency, including the day the Capitol was attacked, British filmmaker Alex Holder had behind-the-scenes access to former President Trump and his inner circle as part of a documentary project. The footage his team gathered was subpoenaed by the committee probing the attack, and investigators have interviewed Holder as they seek to piece together what happened. Alex Holder three-part documentary series Unprecedented premieres today on Discovery Plus, and he is here with us this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Morning.
Your documentary, which I've watched, powerful footage of the brutal violence on January 6th. Your documentary also focuses on the Trump family in an intense way. Do they feel any culpability for what happened?
I mean, in my interactions with them, no, not at all. I mean, I think President Trump, when I interviewed him in Mar-a-Lago, he doubled down on the position. In fact, he even says that the reason why the protesters went into the Capitol on January 6th was because they had believed that the election was stolen. Well, who told them that the election was stolen other than him? And then with respect to his children, they declined to discuss the subject of January 6th. So I think that their silence will be for others to determine what that really means.
You and your crew captured this amazing moment in January 2021 with Vice President Pence as he has to confront a decision on something most vice presidents never have to make a decision about, whether to invoke the 25th Amendment. Let's take a look at that moment.
I joined the Senate Democratic leader in calling on the Vice President to remove this president by immediately invoking the 25th Amendment. If the Vice President and Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment.
Oh. 748.
That's when I received it, but the House members got it a while back.
Yeah, excellent. Tell Zach to print me off a hard copy for the trip home.
Sure.
Great. I'm always hopeful about America. I always believe that America's best days are yet to come, and I still believe that.
What did you witness behind the scenes that day that you may have shared with the January 6th committee that we didn't see?
Well, I mean, that day was pretty extraordinary. This is about 6 days or so after the events of January the 6th. We're now in the White House in the OEOB, so this is the ceremonial room for the Vice President. And we saw things in the corridors at desks that were sort of upended and chairs outside because they were obviously moving out for the new administration. And there was this sort of really dour, quite sort of depressed mood in the building at that time. And some of the aides around the Vice President as well were also, talking quietly, whispering. Things were, it was a very uncomfortable situation. And then the Vice President walks in, he sits down. And this is, I mean, on that day, he was probably the most famous man in the world because this was all about the 25th Amendment and whether or not he was actually going to invoke this procedure. So it was an extraordinary day, and he sits down in the chair and his aide hands him over his phone, and myself and also our director of photography saw that it was from the Speaker's office. And we captured this extraordinary moment and also the aftermath of it as well. So we were walking in history all the way through this entire process of making this documentary. And I hope people tune in and watch it and see these incredible moments unfold.
You were walking through history. You were with the Trump family again and again, and you cast them as a family that's also a brand, and it's a brand that cannot accept defeat. Do you believe the former president will run again?
Oh, I don't know whether or not he'll run again. I mean,
But you've been up close with him.
I think he tends to not do the same thing twice when he fails. And I think the reason for that, and this is what the series shows, is it's all about the brand. It's all about the word Trump. And the association of the word Trump to failure is something that he can't accept and his kids can't accept. So the idea that it may happen again, that he might fail again, is something that would be something that he could not accept. So maybe he might take the risk, maybe he won't take the risk, we'll see. I mean, he says we'll see.
You spoke to former President Trump about democracy. What did that conversation reveal to you?
Oh, I don't think he really understands what that really means. I mean, when I'm sitting in front of him, in the White House, on sort of 4 or 5 days after his own Attorney General has said there's no evidence to support his claims of election malfeasance, and he's given me all these different reasons as to why there actually is election issues and how we need to intervene and we need to sort of get brave and courageous judges. I mean, this isn't a man who really sort of fully understands what it means to be, what democracy actually really means.
You've probably spent more time with Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump than almost anyone else outside of that family. Do you believe they are angling to continue the Trump brand politically and run for office, if not in 2024, at some point in the future? You know them.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I mean, Don Jr. certainly came across, at least in my interactions with him, and I think in the series people will see that he does have an interest in politics for sure. And he goes into sort of the background of where his political awakening comes from, which is pretty interesting. I think Eric, maybe not as much, and Ivanka will see as well. But I think that but ultimately, with this family and what the series shows is this sort of the dynamic, the sort of succession vibe, the dynamic between the 3 children and the relationship they have with their father and vice versa.
Alex Holder, thank you so much for coming by. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And we will be right back. That's it for us today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you can't watch us live, be sure to set your DVRs and watch us later. And Margaret will be back next week. For Face the Nation, I'm Robert Costa.